Got small hands and want to know which 2011 is for you? The answer is probably none of them, because 2011s are huge. But this gun, the Tanfoglio Limited Master Xtreme, yeah, we're doing that, has a lot of the same qualities as a 2011, shoots in the same divisions in competition, and it fits normal sized hands better. Is the trigger as good as a 2011? That kind of depends, and we'll get into it, but there's one weird feature to this gun that makes it more manageable than a 2011 when shooting. Well, it's a combination of features, but we'll get there. First and foremost, if you're new here or you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. It helps me out. If you find you get value at any point during the video, just hit the subscribe button. And a quick disclosure, this gun was sent in for video by the importer for Tanfoglio, the Italian Firearms Group. There's a lot of positive things I'm going to say about this video. There's a lot of negatives too, and I'm going to tell you about all of them. Just stick to it. The Tanfoglio line of pistols are some of my favorites. They're thought of as CZ75 style clones, and that's because the slide rails are inside the frame and the slide rides inside the frame, but that's about where the similarities end, other than the fact they're both hammer fire pistols. The clockwork inside the guns is completely different, like wildly different. So it's a different gun, but it kind of looks like a CZ. This particular version of the Tanfoglio pistol would be equivalent to like the CZ Tactical Sports. It's intended for sport shooting, specifically in like limited or limited optics division, now that they have optics ready guns, or standard if you're one of those international shooting IPSC. The gun weighs about 45 ounces unloaded with an optic, no magazine, so it is a healthy weight to do some super fast shooting and still be stable enough to aim. The Tanfoglio optic ready guns, and you know it's optic ready if you see kind of this weird serration pattern at the back of the gun, comes with an interesting multi-optic plate system. You can fit, I think, 3 or 4 different optic footprints onto this plate. The only downside is it raises the optic nearly flush with the slide. I've got a Seymour RTS3 kind of tacked onto the slide here. But the fact it comes with an optic plate that's completely usable is a super nice feature in the world of, you gotta buy our $75 optic plate, or $150 if you're staccato. The finish is absolutely worth acknowledging. You can see it under the studio lights just shining at you. It is in fact hard chrome, which is an amazing weapons finish. It's not done in the United States so much anymore. There's not many people who do it, but these are made in Italy, and I guess they've got a guy who can do hard chrome over there, because most of the Tanfoglio pistols that are for sport shooting come with the hard chrome finish. Hard chrome is exceptionally hard wearing. It's great for sliding resistance. It's just a really, really good weapons finish. It's better than DLC as far as how it performs. But it's also super shiny, and that's not going to be for everybody if you don't want like a T1000 style gun. The barrel on the Limited Master Xtreme is a cone barrel, or basically a bull barrel that tapers back toward the chamber, and they're exceptionally well fit. All of the Tanfoglio pistols that I have shot have been exceptionally accurate, and this one is no exception. There's a negative on the barrels, we'll get there. Since it's in Xtreme trim, it means a couple things. Xtreme is like the highest end for the Tanfoglio lineup, and that means that it comes with more QC. It actually gets more test firing in the factory. All of the tuning on the triggers is done to a higher level in the factory. So what ends up coming out of the factory is basically from the box to the match capable. And to that point, the trigger pull on this particular gun, you can see a little bit of take up getting to the hard wall. It's a very nice wall, so you know that you're getting on it, so it's easy to not blow through the wall, even though I just did that. But for what I'm about to say to you, this is a 115 trigger on my Lyman digital scale. That's right, a sub 2 trigger from the factory. And the way the frames are situated, where your finger naturally falls on the trigger is at the bottom of the trigger shoe, which is where you have the most mechanical advantage over the trigger. So it feels even lighter potentially, but it's not. Like it's a reasonably safe single action trigger. It's very well set up. Over travel for the trigger, you can see there's a little bit of over travel, and the reset isn't super forceful, but it's, you know, actually very good. It's a very shootable trigger. It's very, very nice. And what makes that even more impressive is the fact that this trigger, and why it's different than most CZ75s, is it's got a firing pin block, which means this exceptional trigger is drop safe. So that's a concern for some people, obviously, but you can get a trigger that bonkers and it's drop safe because it's got a firing pin block. So that's pretty cool. The extreme grips that come on the pistol are aluminum and functional and pretty good. And they're great if you've got smaller hands. I've got bigger hands, so I went ahead and got some gridlock palm swells to put on the gun. The Tanfoglio LOK grips come in 3 different lengths. The short ones are the ones you want to use with a magwell, which is what this is. If you need some LOK grips, consider this. Cool things will happen. Now, if you're a high burn shooter putting a ton of rounds through pistols, I'm actually developing an app for guys just like you. It's about to enter open beta. It's got a chrono module, so I took 5 off-the-shelf loads and I chronoed them through the gun. That's what you're seeing on the screen now. So let's talk about that hinge trigger that we have here, because this thing would be going head-to-head against 2011s, and the guns as jewelry bros will freak out and geek out about triggers. If they shot the guns more, they would understand how much the trigger actually matters, which is not as much as they think. I similarly thought that the sliding trigger on the 2011 was going to be better. But that is until I shot them side by side under a slow motion camera. What I noticed is I was immediately able to split this gun faster than I could the 2011 triggers that I'm accustomed to. And you can see it in the slow motion video, both the Voodoo Gun Works Priest and the Sig Sauer P211 GT5. Both those guns I shot slower than the Tanfoglio. And while we're here, let's look at the guns moving. The Xtreme has slightly less climb and slightly less dip than either of the other guns. I would say it's slightly better shooting than a 2011. However, is that an exploitable difference? Absolutely not, probably not. I picked those guns because the P211 is similarly weighted to the Limited Master Xtreme. And the Voodoo Gun Works Priest kind of hits close to that. It's, 41 ounces or whatever, so not quite as heavy, but close. But look at how the Limited Master throws brass, because that was interesting to me. Both 2011s threw the brass much further than the Limited Master Xtreme, which is closer to the shooter. And if you understand how guns work, when the slide moves to the rear, it's physics that basically carries the momentum of the slide into the ejector that jumps the case out of the gun. If it's not throwing the brass as far, it means there's not as much energy on the slide when it's all the way open. And that's where we're gonna talk about how this gun shoots a little bit nicer than 2011's. First and foremost, it's got a slide in frame design, which means that the rails on the slide, which are full length, marry up with the rails inside the slide, which are also full length. So you're gonna lose a lot of that energy as friction as the gun opens up and moves to the rear with the slide. So you're losing some of the energy that way before it opens up all the way and lifts. Now, you may notice when I open this up, it moves quite a bit. Like, look how much barrel is exposed out the front of the gun versus other, 5-inch 2011s. So I got a caliper out and I checked, because the Kimber 2K11 Pro Comp, which is a government stroked gun, put calipers on it. It was measuring at about 2.0105 inches with the slide all the way open. Putting it on the Bull Tac Comp, which is another government stroke one, it was about 0.04 longer at 2.0495. But this bad boy was nearly a 1/4 inch longer when all the way at the rear of the stroke. It was a 2.240 as far as the stroke length. So it's a 10% longer stroke length than a traditional government length 1911 or 2011. Does stroke length mean that it always is going to shoot nicer? Not necessarily. The downside with that is it's gonna feel like there's more time between shots as the gun is getting back into battery. Now, I realize right now that you're not capable of shooting at cyclic rate of the pistol, neither am I, but I do find that guns that cycle faster, I'm able to pull the trigger faster on. So if you like to be able to burn it down with a twitchy trigger finger, the longer stroke length may not be to your liking. But if you want kind of fast enough splits, maintaining control of the gun, like say 20 splits, which is still 5 shots per second, still plenty quick, then this gun actually makes it felt like it was a little bit more controllable. So those are the first two pieces of why I think this gun shoots a little bit nicer than a 2011. The next piece is coming down to the ergonomics on the pistol. Now, if you have picked up a 1911, you're like, this gun feels amazing. This is great. This is basically perfect. You pick up a 2011 and you're like, this is super fat, it needs to lay off the Cheetos. And I say that as a fluent 2011 shooter. That's my current competition gun. I love those guns, but at the same time, their grips are super huge. And that affects the ability to get onto the magazine catch, which is a problem for some people. I mean, I use a magazine button on my 2011 pistols. And then CZs, where the beaver tail is super skinny, it's just a little bit too narrow. Tanfoglio is more like a 1911 with how the gun sits in the hand and feels in the hand, especially with the palm swell grips that I have on here. It feels like a 1911 with like fat grips on it. It feels super good. The reason I bring that up is because both my wife and my 15-year-old son, who is 5'10", Both of them have smaller hands than me, and they both preferred, when I put them in their hands, they preferred the feel of the Tanfoglio with how they could get to the mag release and being able to get onto the trigger. Yet and still, I wear size XL gloves, and I can get onto the gun in a way that's meaningful. I can get behind it and assist in recoil, and I can get onto the mag button to drop mags, no problem. I said this in the Stock 2 video, I said it in the Stock Master Xtreme video, and I'm saying it here. The ergonomics on the Tanfo pistols are superior to CZ and even superior to 2011s. Does that mean I immediately shot this gun better than the 2011s that I'm fluent with? Absolutely not, because I'm used to how 2011s move. I was not used to how this gun moved. I got used to it pretty quickly and was shooting it at the same level as I shoot my 2011s. So all of that to say, it's worthy of attention, and I think it's a slept on gun. The one thing we didn't talk about on this gun yet is the price, because the price is not cheap. The Xtreme is the most expensive version of a pistol that Tanfoglio will make, and these ones are running from about $2,400 to $2,600. And that's a lot of money. But there are mitigating factors with the price. It comes in a ridiculously large briefcase, and in that briefcase are 4 22-round magazines. And this is 22 rounds with a lockback follower. So if you got the spring and follower kits that are super common in competition use, you could get the 23. And these magazines, which are Tanfoglio large frame magazines, you can buy for $21 a piece. For a 17-round mag, you would have to get obviously mag bases for competition, but that's a pretty ridiculous price on replacement mags in the age of $50, $50, $60 magazines. But either way, that's still a really expensive pistol, but I still think it's a pretty good value, especially for like the high burn competition guys. So that's a lot of really nice stuff. Is the gun perfect? Absolutely not. There's plenty we can talk about as far as negatives are concerned, but in my opinion, they're all manageable. First and foremost, this isn't really a negative, but at the same time, the guns as jewelry bros will immediately pick up on it, which is they just sit there and do this and don't actually shoot the gun. What they're going to notice is that when they open the gun, the barrel is unlocked and flops around. And that makes you think the gun is loose fit, but when it's in lockup, there's less play on this than my staccato guns as far as when the gun is locked up. The gun is not loose fit, but when you open it like that and you feel it bottom out and the barrel wiggles, you'll mistake that for a loose fit, which it's not. This one is where it does start to matter. So the Tanfoglio pistols famously have pretty short throats because they're an international company. There's 2 standards for ammunition, CIP and SAMI. This is built to the European standard, which doesn't contemplate hollow points, which means the throat is super short. So when I was shooting this gun with the hollow points, there were a few times I had to tap it into battery, and you're not supposed to do that because you could potentially get a pressure spike. But the hollow points, and they were factory hollow points, were getting onto the throat, which means if you're thinking about shooting hollow points, you're probably gonna have to get the barrel reamed to accept a longer throat dimension. Yes, I know all the sophomoric jokes talking about throat depths, but get over it. This next one is an issue for sport shooters. The magazines at the front are pretty square, and the grip opening similarly is pretty square. Not a problem if you absolutely throw the reload right in. You twist the magazines just a little bit and they bind up pretty bad, especially if you miss the angle. Like the angle needs to be slightly up, I'm exaggerating. But if I go flat into the gun like that, you can see, I mean, that's hard locked. I can't get it to go. The magazines won't go, but if you get the angle just right, they go in no problem, but it does take some getting used to. That's very common in steel gun with steel magazines, and you just have to get the reload angle pretty much exactly correct and not twist it too much. It'll rotate in from about 10 degrees of rotation, but you get much more than 10 degrees and it's gonna bind. And while we're talking about it, the magwell and frame don't have any blending, not a big deal. It's not really anything to concerned about, but you know, for a premium pistol, just something to bring up. Another one, the contour of the safeties is not quite exactly what you're used to with 2011s. It's super usable, but the safeties feel like they're just a little bit further forward, and my thumb, like they've got the bend like you're gonna hit the safety with this knuckle of your thumb. You're not, you're gonna hit it with the pad of your thumb, and which is fine. It's just different feeling than a 2011 safety, which starts a little bit further back toward the beaver tail. That said, I do wish the safeties were a little bit higher ride. Like when I get on my grip on the safeties, my support hand, when I get it as high as I like to, is contacting the safeties, not enough to turn them on, but it is contacting them. I'd like a little bit higher ride safeties, like if I could hold my thumb like that, that would be more ideal. The magazines also come with lockback followers, which is cool for guys just, you know, target practice on the range. But for this specific gun being used in USPSA and IPSC competitions, you don't want lockback followers, because lockback followers come with a price to pay of about 1 round of diminished capacity. Sport shooters are going to want as many rounds as possible and just deal with it if they have to run dry. For a gun that's positioned as a competition gun, that's a little bit of an oversight, but at the same time, it's not a huge deal to get springs and followers. So there it is. As I said, the Tanfoglio brand is slept on. Back in the early 2010s, when Tanfoglio and CZ were both becoming popular in USPSA, Tanfoglio just couldn't get enough guns into the country. Like, there were almost none. The Tanfoglios at the time were selling for like 2x what the actual like MSRP was supposed to be. And as a result, CZ saw this huge surge in popularity because it was a good shooting gun for not as much money as a 2011. And Tanfoglio kind of got, you know, forgot about. In the early 2020s, when the importer changed the Italian Firearms Group, all of that changed, and the quality of the Tanfoglio guns from the factory improved dramatically. The old Tanfoglios back in the day really needed a lot of work from the factory on the triggers. Even the basic versions of the Tanfoglio guns now are significantly better than they used to be, while the extreme versions of those same guns have absurd triggers right out of the box. Like, you don't really need to do anything to them. In another world, if Tanfoglio was able to flood the US domestic market with pistols in the early 2010s, we'd probably talk about Tanfoglio over CZ. Because I do believe head-to-head, because of how good the frames are on these pistols, most people would prefer a Tanfoglio over a CZ. Speaking of CZ, I can't wait for the new TS3 to come out. I am for sure going to get one and compare it to this bad boy, and we'll see how it stacks up. Although I've heard that those guns are silly expensive, and I'm already really upset about it because I'm still gonna buy one. If you're into DASA style guns for carry optics, you can check out the stock Master Xtreme video I did last year as well.